Hello, my name is Sebastian Mullaert. I'm gonna have a little go through of my live setup. This is the gear that I tour with and travel with when I perform live, but also the same gear that I use when I play together with other artists, musicians, or even DJs. That was one of my ambitions and my aims when I designed this setup, to actually be able to improvise and play together with basically anyone that would like to. This run through, I will actually play sounds and deconstruct a track from one of my latest singles, and it's part of my album coming up in September called Natthall. And the album and this song is recorded together with musicians from Tonhalle Zurich Orchestra. And they are of course not here, but I have used recordings from them and kind of processed and looped that to kind of show how that could be performed in a live situation together with the musicians. So looking at my setup, I would say that the kind of center point is Ableton Live in the computer, which is then controlling both the software side of my setup and the analog and hardware side of it. So it's a mix, software and analog stuff. I see a really great possibility with both these two worlds and decided to merge them together. In the computer, I have, as I said, the program Ableton Live, and in Ableton Live you can choose to have two different views. You have something called the clip view, and then you have or session view, maybe it's called, and this is the arranger view. And the arranger view is a more traditional way of recording something linear. And here you see the actual mixer, but also specific clips, samples, could be audio samples or MIDI clips that you can add into different scenes. On the left side of the session view, I have a little setup of 12 channels. These 12 channels I control with these controllers from Allen & Heath called K2. I find them good measured, like they are big enough to actually have room, and they are not too big. You can add as many as you want, up till 16 K2s actually. I use 5 of them. You could, in my setup, also use less, because I have a layer system, which means that each fader and knob can be used in 3 different layers, and then they're color different. So you can actually see what layer you are in. When I perform and when I play, and actually also in the studio, I prefer to have one fader for one thing, one knob for one thing, as that in a way makes it possible for me to really express, move, change things without thinking too much about where I am, in sense of like what menu or what parameter or what kind of channel in the computer. So here I know that this fader always means that specific thing, this knob means another thing. So the 12 channels are represented here with 12 channels in the computer. If I put up the fader 1 here, it means that the clip that is playing on fader 1 here, it's a little kick drum loop. You can see here is actual samples, you can watch it. All these clips are recorded in my studio. I produced this kind of little set of up to 12 samples that together build a starting point or a frame for me to improvise on. In here, I can also actually change all the things here. I can scroll, so in Ableton you can decide basically anything you see here, you can address to different controllers, and you can choose that yourself. So here I'm choosing what clip to play, And if I'm scrolling, I can go up and down. And here I have hundreds of different sketches. Goes everything from ambient to techno to modern classical, and different scales, different tempos. And I can, when I'm playing, actually decide from what little composition to start with and how to move on to different other ones. So on the first one, we had a little kick drum sample. On the next one, if we continue there is another sample. And in this case, it's actually the whole kind of foundation or the whole ground of my track Moonwaker. So what you hear here is horn, clarinet, cello, and I have recorded them in Zurich. I moved these old recordings to my studio, started to layer and create these soundscapes of these recordings. And then when doing that, I take that recording and put that clip on that specific channel, which means that then I can choose when it should sound, how much it should sound, if it should sound a little bit, etc. And then it continues. So each channel here on the K2 represent one sound in the computer. For different sketches, of course, the sounds are different. So I have some kind of logic starting with kick drum, moving to sounds and melodies and harmonies, and then moving over to rhythmical parts, hi-hats, drums, etc. But it's not always the same because different sketches contain different sounds. So if we take this specific sound, I then can also use other knobs and things here to control and shape the sound. So if we look at this one here, we can look. I have a few different, or actually we take another one. We move over here. Here are the strings. So when I move in that one, you can hear the strings are coming. And that sample is here. You can see here it's a little bit longer, because that's another wonderful thing with Ableton Live, that all these different clips you can have, they don't need to be the same length. So you can actually have a very short loop that is just repeating itself, and then have another part that has a complete different length of the phrase. So here we have the whole string department, basically, the cello and violins. And when I look from the top, there is a little, the first plugin is a beat repeater. And that is an instant looper. So if I take that one, I can choose when I turn the knob to have different, now it's very short, now it becomes a full bar. So that's the first one. The second one is a little EQ that I just added one notch filter, so I can actually add some frequencies on a specific, some gain on a specific frequency to be able to shape the sound, also to be able to actually have a movement in shorter loops that would be very static if not moving them. Then I have a delay and a reverb. And then of course a fader, and I have a little mute that can kill the channel completely. Also something I find very useful is under here I have a little booster. So when I press here, it actually adds 5 dB. It's because sometimes when looping, you loop something that is a bit too quiet, and when you're fixed like this, like on a normal desk, you always have a gain. So if it's not enough with the fader and someone play very low, you could just gain up. I don't have it here, so then I added just a fixed 5 extra dB. So if it's very low, I just add that one. So that's, I would say, the basic setup of these 12 channels. Here on this specific track I have, like here was all the strings in a little longer compositions, but then I have also the strings separated in very short loops. Like here is just a violin, very high pitch, and that is actually how I play when I play with the ensemble. And then they are actually playing live. So I have, you can't see it here, but I have a little extension of my live setup, which have one more computer, one more sound card. So I route all the musician channels into that one. I control their mix with this loop deck, and then I send their full mix here to my master mixer. So when I do that, I can also go in and choose any of the specific instruments and snatch a loop and start to play with that loop. So basically what I've done here in the studio, just taking one little loop, that I can do live with the musicians on stage, which for me adds a certain both spontaneous part, but also a randomness. And the musicians then will hear themselves being looped and start to continue and improvise on top of that. And that looping I also do myself when I play in different ways, both inside the computer with MIDI and hardware with this Boss looper over here. But to be looped by someone else is a complete different thing than looping yourself, which I think makes the thing playing together with more people and looping and interact with each other. You just come to one more dimension of improvisation. So here we had the deconstruction of the strings, you could say. So the next part here in the computer, the channels, are software synths, different sample packs and drum kits. So this part here was quite prepared. You know, it was no arrangement. It was loops with different sounds, but the sounds and the melodies, everything was actually recorded, so I didn't play anything. When I play live, sometimes I just use a small part of a sketch. Sometimes I use the full sketch. When I play with other people, it could be that I only add this, and then I start to play with my instruments on top of that, freestyle, or the other musicians I play with start to play on top of that. So by having all them on different channels, I can choose how much I freestyle and how much is prepared here. So these two on the side here are actually controlling different drum racks and soft synths in the computer. So here and these soft synths I can of course change. If I have a concert, I can choose what kind of instruments, what presets I have. I can also change them when I'm playing. I try not to change too much when I'm playing because there's always that little risk of something happening when you start to change presets and open plugins. That can be a little skip. So often I just keep one setup, and that's why I have quite a few, so I don't need to change. On the first channel here, I have, and that's something I've done to make sure I don't need to think too much. This one here, when I press this button, it always moves me to a specific channel in the computer. We take that again, you can see here that this little white line in the computer is skipping between different parts. Here it's here, which means that when I press that one, whatever I play will sound on that channel. For example, here is a little piano. and then I can choose to play it from this little MIDI keyboard I have here, or I can choose to play it with the push. So the push you can And what I use the push most for, the push is a quite an extensive thing that you can actually control the whole Ableton program, everything inside the program. When I play live, I use it basically for playing notes, make rhythms, but also to loop what I'm playing freestyle. So how you do that is that you choose what length you want. You can also have a free length. But for example, if I want to have 1 bar or 2 bars, 4 bars, I press there. And then when add a little rhythm so I know what I'm playing, I press record. And then automatically in the computer, you can see a 4-bar MIDI clip being kind of launched, and it's triggered, so it's actually recording now. So whatever I play now will be recorded. I can choose to quantize it, or I can choose not to quantize it. So now the MIDI is written. Then I can choose to play on that. So that was the first channel. So that one is basically just a piano. So then I can choose to, like if I'm playing, I can keep it there. Here, if I press this one, I start to control something else. So now you will not hear the piano anymore. The piano is still here. I can change the volume, I can mute the channel, I can loop it if I want. I can still adjust all the parameters I have on that fader, but then I can play something else. So all this is played freestyle on top, and I can choose if I want to have the strings, for example, back again. Here again, if I feel for like, especially when you play together with, or when you play alone and not together with other people, you just have these two hands, and the looping make it possible to actually start building the composition. So when I play with other people, I can play freestyle much longer and actually focus on specific instruments. But here, for example, if we start with this one again, here I would like a longer phrase. So I choose 16 bars here on the push, which means when I press here, it will trigger, if you look in the screen, a new clip, and it's red, means that it's armed, so it's actually recording. So whatever I play now, it's gonna record the MIDI notes. And then if I continue many circles, it will actually give multiple recordings on top of each other. So here I play. When I'm ready, I press the record button again. it stops recording, continue playing. And then I can start to play with the different sounds here and build up the track more. Or I can continue playing the other instruments I have on soft synths. So here it continues. I have pianos, Rhodes, strings, basses. I also have drum racks, like over here is different drum racks. Here I have selected only hi-hats. Here is only claps and snares and rim shots. So if I want to, like here, on these 12 channels here are the pre-recorded ones. If I want to add spontaneous rhythms, I play with the drum racks. Drum racks inside Ableton looks like this. You have a little thing here that actually match the push here. So on each little pad you add a sample, and I have them as one shots, which means that it just triggers different samples. I can choose to play them live, or I can write the patterns. And then again, I choose what length I want on that pattern. Like here is 1 bar. So if I press record now, it starts to blink here where the different, where the marker is. So if I want a little offbeat, on the next one. So then again, the same kind of way of doing it as I did with the channels. I select here what drum rack to actually play. So I don't need to touch the computer. I still have it there so I can look what's going on and what sketch to choose. But here I can trigger different drums, and here, and here. And then it continues with more drum racks. So I have a selection of different ones. So that is basically the whole thing in the computer, which helps me to both have different starting points. I see them as small frames, sketches that I can start from, which I then can choose to evolve with playing on top of them. Or actually sometimes there is no sketch at all, and I only play with the software synths. Then moving over to the analog side. When mixing the computer software and sounds from the computer together with analog gear, you need to have a mixer. And you need to have a sound card that actually sends the audio from the computer into the mixer. I use Universal Audio's Apollo X4 when I tour with this setup. I can also, when needed, actually route extra instruments, synths, or other players into the mic and line inputs on the on this sound card. It has 4. That's why it's called X4. So it works for smaller groups or just playing with 1-2 extra people. When I play with a full ensemble, I have a bigger Apollo, the X8, that I use for that. From the computer, I run 3 stereo channels. One is the loop. The other one is all the extra, which means that I can actually adjust and control the levels of the loop by itself and the things I add. These also have an importance for how I loop with the audio looper externally, because sometimes I want to just snatch the sketch I played and let that continue playing by itself to be able to change and choose a new loop. So for example here, if I'm gonna do that, if we have a little and put it up a little bit louder. I have actually, if you look at this mixer here, you have all the different channels. It's basically the same thing as any mixer. This is mostly a DJ mixer, but I use it for live because I like to have it smaller to be kind of reaching all the gear I have around me. On this mixer you can choose what you want to hear in the headphones. I normally don't really play with headphones much. I like to just listen to what I play and play it out directly. But here you can choose, for example, I can take this channel here, which is or we can take the things I played freestyle. I select that one. It means that it comes out here from the headphone jack. Here, instead of a headphone, I have added a cable that goes to my looper, to the input here. So when I press here, whatever is played here comes in here. So if we take the instrument input here, I can decide how much I want to send in. And then when I press record here, it starts to... And then I put up the fader, and it actually plays that. So whatever I play here, I can snatch in different length. I can also choose shorter loops or longer loops and run it out here. And then I can take away everything I played here, choose another sketch, reset the MIDI clips, and start to bring in something new. So in a way, that is a little bit like a way of DJing what I played myself by kind of grasping a certain phrase, let it continue playing, and then bring in something new, and slowly take away what I actually played before. In the exact same way I work with Ensemble. So I could even snatch a whole part where I play all together, and then that can continue to be playing, and then they can improvise or change to another frame, sketch, composition, and start to move that music into the composition. So the analog gear is actually, if we take away, I have a hard time to take away what's playing. So now we just have this little thing. Here I have a few different synths. I have a little SH01, the copy of the 101, a little Moog Minotaur, and a Roland System 8. These ones I change and use different synths at different places. Often I ask for a few synths when I play, and they can select which ones, which gives me a little variation and uncertainty. And sometimes I get synths I never played with, which is both fun and challenging at the same time. Here I have, in the computer, I have routed all the synths to MIDI. So here I have 4 MIDI channels, as I normally have 4 different synths. And I can, like I did with the soft synths, I can select here what, if you look in the computer again on the screen, pressing the first one, it says 101. Here it says Volca, because I had a Volca before. Here it says external 1 and external 2. So on these ones here, just erase what I had. If I take the 101, means that when I'm gonna play here or here, it's gonna trigger the MIDI to the 101, so you can hear that. I can play the keyboard, or I can play... Or I can play both. Now it was a bit high pitch. Same as the soft synths, I can start record or loop MIDI what I've been playing freestyle. Or I can also write actual sequence with it. For example, here, take a quite short one. And the same goes for the other synths. So I can choose the Roland System 8 here and do the same thing. Or I can play on the synthesizer as well if I want. So in a way, this is, and then same as with the soft side, I can choose to take this one, for example, and loop it on another channel here, for example. So then I selected the headphone output and I run it in here. And then when I have snatched it, like now you can hear, now here is two loops, both the orchestral loop and the synthesizer loop. So then I can start changing them together with filters, with effects, with EQ. And then I can start add something else. Because this is looped, I can erase the MIDI clip I had, take it away, and then I add another one instead. Take a little longer one. So in a way, this can also illustrate how I mix electronic sounds and rhythms, also sounds produced in the studio, together with live recordings and musicians and instruments playing in real time. And to be able to actually merge this together into one mix and in that way allow improvisation to take place. I think that was in a little easy run through of all this. I could end with going through this side here, which I actually didn't talk about. So and take away a little bit here. Like I said, as soon as you start to work with hardware and analog gear, you need to have a mixer. You can also route everything into the computer on sound card. I feel that's still a bit risky to have it like that, and also it adds latency. So you need to, like for example, when I play with the ensemble, I have one specific computer only for the ensemble to do their mix, which means I can have super low latency. But I don't have, when I play here, I use software plugins and and instruments, and it starts to get a bit risky when you have all that to do that on stage. So having all the analog gear requires a mixer and also some effects. On this little thing, beautiful little wooden thing that I got inspired by Frank Wiedemann. He have 2 of these beautifully set up. So this makes it kind of pre-connected, make it easy to fly with, which is another aspect of touring. How do you bring all the gear? What gear do you bring, etc., etc. So here I have a little reverb, I have a delay. Here is the Midi interface, which actually, when I had this, I talked about the 4 different synths I can trigger. I select them here, but the actual MIDI signal goes via this Moto Midi interface out to the different synths. I also have here something that I need sometimes because I have just a DJ mixer with not too many channels. These are 2 kind of super small mixers where I can merge signals. So in this one I can merge 2 mono signals. In this one I can merge 2 stereo signals. So if I want to add more synths and stuff, I can run them in here and blend the signals and just use 1 channel for 2 instruments at the same time. It's a handy little thing to have. On this side here, I have 1 more sound card and my little phone. So what I use that for is to record what I'm playing. So always when I play live, I just press record and I record the entire set. I like to have that by myself. You could of course also ask the sound engineer in the venue to do that for you, but I have experienced that very often I forget to ask, or someone forgets to actually record, or you get it in MP3 format and etc. Here I know that I just press record, I have it, I can actually upload it and send it to everyone I played with the same day we played. So it's very easy and accessible. Here, this little device is a normal router, being able to send out a little Wi-Fi. And that one I use when I play with other electronic artists using computers. So in Ableton Live, there is an amazing little feature called Link. It's here up in the corner. So if I press that, it becomes yellow. And that means that you are linking to everyone that also have that button pressed within the same Wi-Fi network. So I have this one just to make sure that we have a private network, so you don't encourage other people to start coming in and adjusting the music. Because anyone that are linked into this can actually not only be in tempo and synced with the Ableton Live software, but also get access to change everything like tempo, etc. So you want to have the people you play with giving that opportunity, not anyone else. Yeah, I think this was everything. I hope you got some inspiration from this little video, and you're always welcome to ask questions to me through my social media channels if you feel more curious and interested about what I do and if that could help you in any way. Thank you for watching.